Hey, I got an idea. Let's go to Italy. There's a hike there from Florence to Rome. It's only 300 miles. It'd be fun. It seemed to us that going from Seattle, Washington to Florence, Italy, we should spend at least a day visiting the city. So we did. Mitch and Kathy got there a few days before us, and we arrived the next afternoon. For that evening, in one whirlwind day, we walked around Florence, visiting the Duomo, the Uffizi Gallery, the Accademia Gallery. We took a city tour, and we inventoried several great restaurants. The weather was warm and very pleasant. It was a great way to start the trip. Street musicians are abundant in Florence. This group was especially entertaining on the streets near the Duomo late at night. There's a lot to do in Florence. If you plan a visit, make sure to leave some time for enjoying the sights at night. This town stays up late. We learned very quickly that nightlife in Italy, like many other places in Europe, doesn't really start until around 8:30 at night, and it doesn't really get going until 10 or 11. area around the Duomo is huge and offers endless opportunities for sightseeing and fine dining and gelato. It's a good idea to make dinner reservations here, as the wait can be long without them. If you plan on visiting a museum or gallery, buy your tickets online before you leave home. Skipping the ticket line and making a reservation will give you much more time to explore.
Let's go. All right.
We'll walk towards your 10:30. I'm fading. I am fading.
I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna be.
What are you guys doing tomorrow? Going to church at 8:30. Yeah.
Most of the tracks are on this side, but there's also another set of tracks on the other side, so we have to wait until we get our track number.
Oh, okay.
And then they only open one of these little things, and everybody goes into that one and then disperses. Oh. So we look for... So it's got green down there. And then that one down there is also open. But if we have a lower number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll have to go around the corner to the other side.
Oh.
So there's no sense in going in right now.
Oh. How'd you learn all that?
We went to Pisa the other day out of here.
Learn that just wow. That's amazing.
And I've done it all over the world. Different things, multiple things.
Okay. Day one on our excellent adventure, Way of St. Francis.
They're very trusting here. We could have totally walked off.
Oh, yeah. And we left Florence today and came to the Sanctuario La Verna to see where St. Francis started out his ministry. And gracias. And
Just pay it. St. Francis was 20 years old when he started.
yes. Anyway, it's getting toward the end of the afternoon, and it's hard. No. We split everything.
No, not this
All
one.
right, I'm turning this.
Marty, are you gonna say that in front of the camera?
It's the camera, yeah. And yes, we'll split everything. We're in for the good and in for the bad. Yeah. No, Wendy, don't let them do it. Oh,
they-
jeez.
Still gotta do the cap.
Wait, look how cheap this is.
Okay,
Well,
we're splitting.
still-
We're splitting.
Yeah, straight down the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, gracious.
Now we're going to meet our cab driver, who's going to,
Or we're gonna walk.
or we have a 9-mile walk, and it's 6:00. Yes. So we're cheering for the cab driver to get back. So
If not, we'll be calling him every hour all night long.
Switchbacks. Mary, there are switchbacks. It's
So-
like, oh my God. I'd get my sea legs back.
yeah. Anyway, this is a great place, and the temperature is actually perfect right
is.
now. We are veterans of several Caminos de Santiago, and one of the differences that we weren't prepared for here in Italy was the lack of pilgrim infrastructure. Lodging proved hard to find, and we soon learned that our walking route would be greatly determined by where we could get a place to sleep. Citerna, Italy, and way up there in those mountains is Verna. And yesterday we walked from Pieve Santo Stefano, which is halfway to those mountains, down, well, over those hills, and then down the valley to that town, which is called San Sepolcro. And then this morning we walked back up the valley and over that hill in the foreground and up this giant hill, and we're going to go down this way a little ways, just over to that hill over there. That's where we're staying tonight.
This is beautiful.
And then the next day we'll be continuing down the valley on our way.
Take care. You have a key?
Io adesso sto tornando a buonasera signora, buonasera, dove va? Grazie, ben trovata.
We left Gubbio at 6 o'clock in the morning. We wanted to beat the heat of the day. We walked downhill and into the valley, and after a short walk, we stopped at a gas station for a cup of coffee. And we got a cab from there to the top of the next big hill so that we could make sure that we weren't out hiking in 90-degree weather. The beautiful view showed us what was ahead of us. We walked down that hill and through very beautiful sunflower fields. The heat continued to rise and the day drug on, but finally we saw a sign pointing us in the direction of the hotel that we had decided to stay at that night, the Ripa Relayus. And we arrived there at about 2 o'clock, got our shower, and then went out by the pool. If you look, you can see Assisi in the background where we're going tomorrow. After a nice dinner, we had another wonderful night's sleep, and we got up the next morning to a beautiful view of wildflowers out our window. And once again, a 6 o'clock departure in order to beat the heat. We checked out of the hotel and began walking. Pretty flat walk, right until we got to the outskirts of Assisi, where we could see a very steep road rising toward the town. It wasn't just the road that was steep. The town on the side of the hill is steep. And we found that once we arrived in the lower section, we had another climb all the way up to the top where our hotel was located. At the top of this road, we found more stairs, a steeper road, narrow paths, and finally our hotel. And in a familiar routine, we took a shower, rested a moment, and then began our sightseeing. Here we are at St. Francis Basilica.
In Assisi.
Sightseeing in Assisi is like sightseeing in any other medieval town, except it's on quite a steep hill. The roads or streets are very narrow, and there are churches everywhere that have some importance that you should look at. This is the main basilica, and you'll of course want to go there and take pictures there. It's some of the only flat ground in the whole town, and it's very beautiful, and you can spend a lot of time there, looking on the top floor and on the bottom floor, looking at the different chapels and where St. Francis is buried. Because we'd spent so many days walking in the heat before we got here, we really enjoyed just having the time to walk around town without our backpacks on in relatively clean and dry clothing all day long. Looking at the different sites. The basilica is the biggest and most famous chapel in Assisi, but there are a lot of other chapels, large and small, that you should probably take a look at if you have any interest in history or architecture. This is the Temple of Minerva. It's in the main square. This is a small little chapel that's off on a side street. Not a whole lot in it, but representing the large and small. If you've walked the way of St. Francis from Verna to Assisi, you can get a certificate that testifies to that. We did, and we got it from this woman. Her name is Åsa, and she is from Norway. When she looked at my name, she said, "Are you Norwegian?" And I told her that my family was. And in a crazy coincidence, Åsa had lived in the same town that my family was from and had worked as a nurse and every day driven by our home, knew exactly where it was at. So it's a small world, and you never know where you're going to meet someone who you have a connection with. We left Assisi early again, about 6 o'clock a.m., walking south on the Via Borgo Arento through the Porta Nuova gate. It's also called the New Gate, and if you're entering Assisi from the south, it's the first of 3 similar gates that you will go through into the city. Below is the town of Santa Maria della Angeli, where St. Francis spent much of his ministry in the location of the 7th largest Christian church, the Basilica of Santa Maria de' Angeli. Our walk today will divide the mountains to the left from the valley to the right, alternating between the 2 landscapes. The weather forecast is for rain and thunderstorms today, so we're hoping to get to Foligno before we get wet or electrocuted. The town of Spello is where we met this fella. His name is Umberto, and he is a pilgrim from the Azores who was on his way to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. He's one of a very few pilgrims that we met on our trip. We kept going south between the valley and the mountains, trying to outrun the lightning. And along the way we went through a lot of farm fields, some small towns, and into some city streets. You can hear the thunder in the background as we get close to Foligno. Eventually we crossed the bridge into the old town, stopped for a coffee and a pastry, and then walked just a little ways farther to our hotel. After a nice stroll around town, we found a place to eat. Had a great dinner served by the owner's daughter, who treated us spectacularly. Well, we left Foligno in the morning, back down the valley, stopped at the odd bar gas station, looked at some pizza ovens along the way, and basically had a flat walk. We ran into a olive oil factory we thought we'd take a look at, but it was closed. Off in the distance we could see Trevi on top of a hill, and the sign said it was only 4 kilometers away, but it was a long 4 kilometers. It was up a very, very steep hill, and we never seemed to get there. But we kept climbing along with the temperature, and we finally got up to the top, to the beautiful city of Trevi. From the top, if we look north, we could see Foligno and beyond that, Assisi in the hills where we'd come from 2 days before.
It's hard to tell. See that one at the bottom of the hill?
Yeah.
I think that's where we came from.
I think that's probably right.
And then right past that is Assisi.
And past that might be Gubbio.
Yeah. Although I think Gubbio was up over the other side of the hill.
Oh, was? Okay. Yeah, you're right. Just we cabbed it over.
What, are you trying to stay in the witness protection program?
No, I just didn't want to ruin it. We were trying to get the
Senor Mitch!
After we checked into our hotel, we got cleaned up and had a swim. It felt pretty good after the heat that we'd been walking in. Then we went out to see if we could get a bite to eat and to see what that town had to offer. Our day in Trevi consisted of walking around town, stopping for a drink and a snack. Here's our lunch waitress, a very nice college student. Going back to swim again, looking for a place to have dinner, and this ended up being it. This was our waiter for dinner, a really nice man and a fantastic meal. After dinner, a stroll through town, relaxing and enjoying the evening air before we went to bed in preparation for the next day's hike.